Hey everybody, it's the third of UIO podcasts, special releases for coping during the coronavirus crisis. Hugs to everyone, even if they are virtual, and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teen girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today we're talking about body positivity, a topic at the center of life for many teen girls and women. Attitudes towards body has a lot to do with perception, and perception feels like reality, even if it isn't. The thing is, our thoughts, influenced by life around us, can lead to negativity during the best of times, leading to mental health problems with physical manifestations. During these difficult times, negative thoughts could pose even more threats. It's so important to have body confidence to help navigate this new landscape. In this podcast, we want to give you tools to be happy and healthy in all circumstances, certainly during this pandemic. Here to help us out and offer tips on how to be good to your body during this challenging time is multi-award-winning campaigner Hope Virgo. An author and public speaker, Hope suffered with anorexia for 4 years. She has been delivering workshops up and down the country in corporate companies, universities, hospitals, and schools to remove the stigmas around mental health, to raise awareness about eating disorders, and to share her inspiring story. We are so honored to have you as our guest today, Hope. Welcome and thank you for joining UIO.
No, thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So Hope, your journey really is an amazing one. I mean, you've been through so much to reach where you are today. It is really wonderful that you share your experiences with others for the benefit of raising awareness and to impact change. We really need that. We know that so much research has been done around the issue of body image. We came across some research that showed that 50% of 13-year-old American girls were unhappy with their bodies. And this figure rises to nearly 80% by the time they're 17 years old. And here in the UK, 31% of students felt ashamed of their body type. And 2 in 5 had seen photos of themselves online that made them worry about their body. And more worryingly, over 60% of girls and young women have low self-esteem, somehow connected to body image. Hope, I'm really looking forward to you helping us to put this into perspective. You know, here we are locked down around the world, living in our heads more than ever, and perhaps focusing even more on our bodies. So what can our teenage girls do during isolation to maintain positive thoughts about their body during these difficult times? And what can they do to avoid mental health hazards and just stay healthy?
So I think at the moment it is a really challenging time. And I think for a lot of us, we're struggling to kind of put our thoughts and emotions and feelings into the right wording to explain what we're going through. And what I find with myself and also with others is when that happens, we tend to kind of escalate in negative body image. So we look in the mirror and all of those nasty thoughts are going around our head about the current situation. And the way that we cope with it and the way that we express it is by looking in a mirror and basically saying, I feel fat, I feel this. And that fat word at the moment, it just means so much other stuff. So I think for me, what it is at the moment, it's about firstly, not using the fat word as a negative. So in society, we're told all the time, aren't we, that fat's a really negative thing, that it's a bad thing, and it's got a lot of negative connotations with it. So at the moment, it's about just getting rid of that word from our vocabulary and using it as a describing word, but not using it in that negative sense. I think as well, when you are having those days when you look in the mirror and you feel a certain way, it's about trying to articulate what you're feeling. So whether that's you write it down on a piece of paper and you write down the feelings of uncertainty or the fact that you're scared or you're worried about your schoolwork or worried about your exams or whatever it might be, writing all of that stuff down then helps to articulate it in a more healthy way. And then the other two things that I think are really important at the moment is like more practical stuff. So firstly, making sure that every single day you're getting dressed and you're having a shower. I know how easy it is to kind of, at the moment, because we're not going out, to just be in my pajamas all the time, not wash my hair, not put makeup on. But actually, it's those things that help me feel nice about myself and also help improve my body image. And although that might sound quite superficial, I think actually generally, if we're making a little bit more effort and we're not just kind of sitting around in our pajamas or our trackies all day, it can be really positive for us. And the final thing is just movement. And when I talk about movement, I mean basically any physical activity. So whether it's stretching in the evening or going for a walk, but just making sure that we're kind of doing a little bit of exercise every day. And that's not strenuous exercise. It's not running. It's not going to the park and doing kind of loads of HIIT workouts, but it's just having a little bit of movement to help us feel a little bit more confident in ourselves. And then we can remind ourselves during that movement that actually, yes, we might be struggling with our body image, but our body can do amazing things through movement. And by focusing on those positive things, it helps, again, reshape that mindset.
I think that's really amazing. You said some wonderful things there, and I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. When I think about movement, for example, I agree. It is so important to really keep it moving, because I think for me, sometimes it helps get me out of my head, particularly in a negative way. If I'm going to be in my head while I'm walking or during my exercise or doing yoga, your breath is so calming and it helps you to think more positively and have more gratitude. And I think it's so key to what you said about getting dressed and having a shower every day. I agree with you. I don't think it sounds superficial, or it is superficial at all, because even during the best of times, during the past when we had a different way of life, I think it's so important to get up, get dressed, and do something, because oftentimes if I don't put on clothes like I'm going to work, my attitude is not focused on work. And we know that our girls in particular, as teenagers, girls and boys, social media has been a very big part of their existence, and it's what they've come to rely on. And we find that a lot of negativity has been expressed. Social media can be very positive, and it can be a wonderful thing. And it's what we have now for staying connected. But looking at concerns around social media, what advice can you give our teenage girls about managing social media activity, given that it is the key to connecting now?
So I think, again, like you said, like social media can be a real positive at the moment, and it's about using it in a way that actually is beneficial to our mental health, but also to improve, I guess, our imagery and how we're seeing the world. I guess my advice at the moment is firstly, just to be mindful about how much time you're spending on social media. So if you know that at certain points in the day, you might have a bit of a lull in mood, and then you're likely to scroll constantly through Instagram and through Twitter or whatever social media you might use, actually just being mindful about actually not taking that time to do that, but maybe doing something to distract yourself, whether it's doing some colouring or talking to someone or setting up a call with one of your friends. Actually using it in that sense is really positive. I think the other thing to do is to make sure that every single month, and this is so important generally, but I think particularly at the moment, is about diversifying what you're looking at. So making sure that actually you're not looking at content that triggers you. I know for me at the moment, my main struggle with social media is the constant bombardment of fitness accounts. So PTs, big fitness brands, everything, places that I would normally be okay following. But at the moment, the pressure to constantly be working out and look a certain size, to use this kind of lockdown period to get into shape, all of that I don't think is a healthy message. So for me, it's about actually going through and unfollowing all of those accounts and changing up what I'm looking at, so that when I'm looking at social media, I'm not feeling, I guess, worse about myself. And then I think the final thing on that is just to remember, like, I know at the moment people are kind of posting their best lives during lockdown, and we're seeing a very kind of one-sided view of actually what it's like for people. We're not seeing the days where people get up and they really struggle through lockdown. We're not seeing kind of the evenings when people are on our own. What we're seeing is kind of like this, I guess, this mismatch of what they want us to see, but then also their kind of photo reel of maybe they're calling their friends in the evenings, or they're doing a Zoom call or whatever it might be. And we're just seeing that. So just being mindful that actually, like, like as with normal, what we're seeing on social media isn't actually the reality of what's going on for that person. So just remembering that so that we don't feel like we're being left out and we're kind of being pushed out of situations.
That is really important. I think a big component of social media is that what we see often isn't real. And I think with the struggle to stay positive, it's probably even more sort of difficult to see real life stories. And I think that's a really key thing. And just to, be supportive of one another in the best ways possible. And I think the other thing you said about triggers, that's really key, because I suffer with generalized anxiety disorder, and I've had to do a similar thing with knowing what triggers me. I limit my time on social media because it triggers anxiety. I think sometimes we don't think about that, and we need to know our triggers. And I think that's wonderful advice. Looking to the future, of course, we're in this time, and we talk a lot about staying in the space you're in and trying to manage the space you're in. Because I know for me, if I spend a lot of time thinking about the past, good memories are great. But thinking about what I could have done differently if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, that doesn't really help the situation. And if I spend a lot of time worrying about an outcome that hasn't happened, worrying about the future. But of course, we have to have hope, and we have to think about life, with reference to the future in a healthy way. I want to ask you about looking to the future. What can girls do to nurture a healthy mind and a healthy body?
Good question. I think when looking to the future and about kind of managing your well-being, I guess more broadly, and to the whole area with your body, I think for me, it's really important at the moment, firstly, to actually just make sure that we're using this time for ourselves and we're not putting pressure on ourselves. So I know for me that my work's got a lot quieter, and obviously, like if you're at school, you're not going to go to school at the moment. So maybe just taking a bit of a step back and actually thinking about improving who you are. So working on hobbies that you like doing, taking time out each day to feel thankful for something, taking that time out to start talking about your emotions and your feelings, and to realize that if you're feeling something now, it's so important. And this is the time to actually start talking about it and express those emotions. I think once we get to the end of this lockdown period, it will be a challenge going back to kind of whatever normal life is. I don't even know if we'll go back to kind of living the way that we were beforehand. Things might be very different. And I think that could actually be a positive in one sense. But I think a lot of the same stuff still goes. So being mindful about what you're looking at on social media, making sure that at the moment you're not bombarding yourself with unhealthy images, unhealthy messaging, because if you do that, that stuff will subconsciously stick with you when this lockdown finishes. So maybe instead of doing that, do things like journaling. So taking some time out every day to write a positive of the day. Or what I do is every morning I say something that I'm thankful for. So actually getting into that kind of thankful, grateful mindset, again, is something that is a positive to then take further forward into the future. I think as well with our whole bodies and kind of trying to understand the mindset around that and the mindset of why we're feeling certain things. I think, again, it's just about being mindful of what we're saying and the kind of conversations we're having. I know at the moment there is a lot of focus, like I said a minute ago, about getting into shape and this whole thing around diet and diet culture. And I do feel like actually the diet industry are using lockdown as a way to push their messaging and to basically bombard people with these really unhealthy messages around what we should look like, what we should be eating, what we should be drinking. And it's really, really challenging. And if you feel like that is having an impact on you, I would encourage you to actually try and work that through now with someone that you trust and someone that can support you with that. Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to finish lockdown and for all of us to have such distorted views and images in our head and opinions on things around food and calories and exercise that we then take that forward. So for me, a big thing with that is actually just taking a step back, talking about it, and just being mindful of what we're looking at and the kinds of conversations that we're having.
That's really amazing. That's excellent. You said a lot of wonderful things in there. And I think lots of these messages will really stick with our audience. It's such great advice to take a step back and just be really mindful of what it is that you're listening to, the images that you're watching. And it's very easy to think that these messages, which can be unhealthy messages, they can be distorted to seem like positive, healthy messages, because a lot of times you're, eat healthily and look this way and so forth and so on. So I think that's really key to do that. And then I think some of the wonderful practical things that you can do, which you reiterated, and that is journaling. I think journaling is amazing. It's very, very helpful to do that, improving yourself, taking time to focus on something that you've enjoyed, focus on a hobby, find something new. It's, your creativity is only limited by your mind. And I think that's really cool. This has been a great conversation, Hope. It's been wonderful to talk to you and to get so much great advice. And before we get out of here, I want to know if you want to add anything else or place emphasis on anything that you said, or any particular hot tips that you want to leave our teenage girls with during this very difficult time.
I think the main thing is just to talk about how you're feeling. I think at the moment it's really difficult and it is a really challenging time. And we're not here to paint like a happy, clappy picture of what's going on, because I think for some of us it won't feel like there is that time, and for other of us we are able to find something positive in this. But I think whatever you're going through right now, it's okay, and it's about trying to find other ways to manage our emotions in a more healthy way. So if you have unhealthy coping mechanisms, whether it's how you feel about your body, or whether it's taking getting angry, getting frustrated, it's about finding another way to deal with that. And for me, a big thing is obviously the talking, which I've mentioned. So talking about how we're feeling, the journaling, so journaling your emotions and things like that. And also every single day trying to do something for yourself. So something nice for yourself, whether it's watching something on the telly that you want to watch, or drawing a picture, or having a bath, whatever it might be, actually making sure that you're doing that. And within all of that, having some kind of routine. So making sure that every day you're getting up at roughly the same time, you're setting yourself maybe like something to do in the morning, you're going out for your one piece of exercise, you're coming home, having lunch. And then keeping that structure is vital at the moment, I think, for people's mental well-being, and actually making sure that we're staying in that positive mindset as well. But again, not putting too much pressure on yourself to feeling kind of 100% every single day.
That is such great advice, and such a great point about understanding that everybody's not going to feel happy every day. And this is a very difficult time. It's a pandemic, and some people will be impacted directly, either getting sick themselves or their loved ones. And it's very, very important to make that point, that there are different ways to cope. And so this has just been really wonderful conversation. Lots of great advice for our teenage girls. And we just, again, thank you so much, Hope, for being our guest today on UIO. And I can't really wait to get the podcast out.
Cool, Fab. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Great show with lots of insight from Hope Virgo. So important to be reminded that not every day is a good one, but there are steps we can all take to be more positive about our body. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. Today, I want to pray for all girls and women to have a great relationship with their own body. Now, during lockdown, we spend so much time in our heads that I pray that this time will be filled with positive thoughts. I pray that girls will not compare themselves to others, and that time spent on social media will be limited and well managed for better overall physical and mental well-being. I pray for strength and endurance for those who have felt the impact of COVID-19 up close and personal, and that these experiences will not influence how they see themselves. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Short but full of essential information. More special podcasts coming your way on sustainability and making change in the world around you. And then looking to the future, we'll get back in the studio with longer podcasts on these key subjects. Meanwhile, hit me up on Twitter @Sonja Lewis, Instagram @Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook sonjalewis.com/UIO-podcast. Tell me what you want to hear about, and keep sending those questions on any of the episodes. Take care of you inside out, and remember, it is UIO.